Welcome to the program tonight. Now, this Thursday evening, we still await the identity of the fourth police officer who was involved in that brutal beating of a Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology student. The three were identified after outrage from members of the public to have them interdicted and sent home after, and more importantly, identified. Now, I know you've seen it, but indeed, this is the video that started it all. It is a difficult one to watch, even for me. So this is what happened. This is the video that started it all after the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture students protested the rising cases of insecurity. But before we begin, I would like to put some context here. Let's take a look at the law, all right? Now, the Constitution allows for demonstration and picketing in Article 37, saying every person has the right to picket and to present petitions to public authorities. And the police are supposed to provide security upon notification of intention to protest. So just what laws guide the police during such an exercise? Let's start off with, again, the Constitution of Kenya, and that is in Article 244, that states that the National Police Service shall strive for the highest standards of professionalism and discipline amongst its members. It also goes on to say that it should train staff to the highest possible standards of competence and integrity, and to respect human rights and fundamental freedoms and dignity. Now, there's another document that we can look to, and that is the National Police Service Standing Orders that were put out in the year 2017 by then Inspector General Joseph Boynet, which guide police conduct, their structure and command in the post-2010 Constitution era. So, Chapter 47 deals with the lawful use of force and firearms. And it states that lawful use of force may be applied to protect the officer from others or from what is reasonably believed to be a threat of death or serious bodily harm. It also allows them to do so to protect life and property and to prevent a person who attempts to rescue a charged person with a felony from escaping lawful custody, as well as to suppress or disperse a riotous mob that's committing or attempting to commit a serious offense against life or property. It also goes on to state that the force shall be proportional to the objective to be achieved, to the seriousness of the offense, and the resistance of the person against whom it is used, and the extent necessary, while adhering to the provisions of the law. Now, we'll take a look at some of these questions again when I'll have you watch the video. Now, the standing orders also talk about reasonable or proportional force. And it is not an equal standard, it is actually more circumstantial. As we have heard the police spokesman saying, Charles Owino say if a suspect fires at a police officer, reasonable force would mean firing back. So there is some level of discretion that is allowed at this point. But the basic fundamental rights apply here too. Now, I want us to also take a look at something else that is important in that. And it is important to note in the standing orders that when the use of force results in injuries, the police officers present are supposed to provide medical assistance immediately. And unless there are good reasons, failing to do so shall be considered a criminal offense. They're also supposed to notify relatives or close friends of the injured or affected persons. Now, what does an officer then do after all of this? He then does what is known as a debrief, part of which involves him or her reporting the incident immediately. The order states that a police officer who uses any form of force shall immediately report to the officer's superior. They will explain the circumstances that necessitated the use of force, and the supervisor shall judge the rightfulness and decide on the next step to the regulations. Now, any use of force that leads to death or serious injury and other grave consequences is supposed to be reported immediately to the officer in charge, to another direct superior of the person who caused the death or injury, and to the Independent Police Oversight Authority, that's IPOA, who will then investigate the case. By the way, at this point, nothing stops the Inspector General from also conducting his or her own investigations. So after the report is made to IPOA, the scene of the act is supposed to be secured, and this is for purposes of investigation. It's essentially a scene of crime. The next of kin must also be notified of the death or injury as soon as possible. Now, a police officer who fails to report the use of force in accordance with the 6th schedule to the National Police Service Act of 2011 shall be liable to disciplinary action. Also, this police officer is not supposed to tamper or otherwise damage any evidence from the scene, like batons that they use, like the firearm that may have been used, under any circumstance. He or she is not supposed to do that, and is supposed to secure this immediately, so you don't touch it, you don't clean it, you don't oil it in any way. Now, if you recall the outrage when it was announced that the officers involved had been interdicted but not named, this is why. You see, Section 12 of the Standing Orders requires a police officer in uniform to at all times make sure he has a name tag or identifiable service number in a clearly visible part of the uniform as provided for in the dress code regulation. And that is why there were some who are outraged, saying that their identity should have been revealed without delay. Remember, we're still waiting for the identity of the fourth. Now, a demand that police, acceded to when they later revealed the names, and that's what we said. So I'd like us to take a look at that video one more time, if this can cooperate with me, because there are some critical questions that will be asked of this incident and that they will be attempting to answer, particularly IPOA, and that is the Independent Policing and Oversight Authority. So I want you to take a look at this video one more time so that we can take a look at it together. So take a look at this video. Now, these are some of the pertinent questions that will come out of this incident. 1, was this man resisting arrest? Okay. Does he look like he's resisting arrest? Was the force here used reasonable? I mean, the man is already subdued and he is on the ground and he's unarmed with no less than 4 officers surrounding him with rifles and weapons. Let me see if I can get it to play again. Now, was this man accorded medical attention immediately? Was the scene here secured? Were all of these weapons that were used immediately secured? And here's another question that the police will be seeking to answer as they investigate this. Did the 4 officers immediately report to their seniors? And if so, what action did the seniors take? And more importantly, how far up does the chain of responsibility and accountability go? Those are very key questions that IPOA will be trying to answer in their investigations of this very serious case of police brutality. That's my explainer tonight.